Growing takes time. Ranch Systems has the tools to help you quickly get the information you need so you can get on with your day. Check your water, crop status, and weather from real sensors in your field. To learn more, contact us today.
Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with American Vineyard Magazine, reporting to you here today with Michael Miiller from the California Association of Winegrape Growers. He heads up government relations, which is very important. And we've got this rainwater, that has come in just a short period of time. And while we're so excited about it, it's this extensive drought that we've experienced. That's not going to solve all of our problems here. In fact, with it all coming down as fast as it did, a lot of it really just ran off into the ocean. We've lost so much. In reality, we should have been better prepared for this. Can you expound upon that?
Yeah, sure. So at the Winegrape Growers, we've always been focused on sustainability and how do we make sure that we conserve water, use water in an efficient way. How do we capture heavy storm water during big periods of rain? How do we use that later to reduce the demand on rivers and streams, thereby creating the habitat needed for various fish and wildlife? And we've been very active on that. We've sponsored legislation in 2011 and 2017. We've been at the forefront of this issue. What we've learned in the last few years is that our system of how we manage water, where we have, in winter months, we have ongoing periods of snow. In the mountains, you have snow cap that then melts later. We capture in the reservoirs. We store that water. We transfer it around the state through our various conveyance systems, and we use that water where it's needed, and it's available for everybody. That system doesn't work anymore, and it just isn't reliable. While we do need surface water, we'll continue to push for increased surface water storage. We also need groundwater, because the reality is, in this period of drought, where we're now looking at climate change and drought and all of it put together, it's not that we're not getting enough water, because nature's giving us all the water we need. It's just coming all at once, in these big, atmospheric rivers, these big cyclone storms, these big events, cyclone bomb storms, and it's coming all at once, and it's not necessarily turning into snow. So it's a warmer rain, and we need to capture it when it happens. When you're looking at how California was back in the day, what nature did for California was the water didn't just go into the rivers and streams, it gathered where it was and it percolated into the ground. Right. And that was able to, with that system, we were able to create groundwater storage for later.
Like, where I live in the San Joaquin Valley, what I heard is that, it used to be that it was a floodplain, right? In certain times of the year, where today they're just homes and streets and drainage and everything's just running off, right?
Right. So but it's more than just running off. We're doing it deliberately for flood protection. Right. We need to make sure that our communities are safe, so we want to have flood protection where the water has to be transferred somewhere. So we're sending a lot of it out to sea. And it isn't that that's needed for environmental benefit. In many cases, that water just goes. It's not during a spawning period. It's not during, a period where you need a heavy flow. It's just going because we have nothing. We don't have the ability to save it. So, at COG, what we're doing is we're sponsoring legislation. We're working with the various water agencies, environmental groups, ag groups, others, to figure out how do we make that transfer. How do we shift from focusing exclusively on surface storage and then shift into groundwater in times of drought, versus actually creating a reliable system of groundwater. That's going to require probably a minimum of 10 million acre feet of new groundwater recharge annually. The good news in that is that we have the ability to do that right now. We have the technology for it. We have the projects in place. We know how to do it. We just have to really get a commitment and get some of the regulatory obstacles, resolved and dealt with, so we can actually get the permits necessary to do the groundwater recharge, make sure that there's no negative effect on any other users, and create the system that provide water for all. Every part of California, environmental, communities, industrial, agriculture, everybody. Everybody needs that water, and we have a way of creating a reliable water system, and we're going to push that agenda in Sacramento through legislation in 2023.
Well, and as we know, certain crops like grapes, across vineyards, you can flood a vineyard, and it's not going to detrimentally affect it if you've got the infrastructure in place. Basically, you don't have to fallow a land just to make a recharge basin. You can actually do that. It can drain drain into the groundwater.
Right. So Don Cameron is a grower down in the South Valley. He was able to, I believe it was in 2017 or 2020, I forgot what year it was, he was able to divert water from the Kings River, flooded a vineyard, and was able to capture water. And he kept it flooded all the way into June. And he was able to, he said it had no detrimental effect on his vineyard, his crop. He was able to have a solid crop that year. And he was able to, I can't remember the number, but I want to say it's close to 50,000 acre feet of water. It was a substantial amount of water that he was able to create through that. And the reality, too, in agriculture, if you're looking at some of the emergency regulations, the drought regulations in place that are taking water away from vineyards, you got to think for a moment and remember that vineyards are a low water usage crop, right? It just, the nature of growing a grape means you're going to use a lot less water than growing other crops. If there's not enough water to grow grapes, that's a canary in the coal mine for all of agriculture. If you can't grow grapes, you're going to have a lot of problems growing other crops as well.
So this bill, that we're working on here, is that going to involve getting access to that water? Because some people are already set up for being able to take on some of that water. Is that do we just need to get access to be able to do that?
So,
is it going to cost money? Water is pretty expensive these days,
Very true. So what we're doing is we're putting in a goal in state law, a goal of 10 million acre feet of new recharged groundwater annually. That's the goal we're putting in the statute. By doing that, that will direct some regulatory changes and some actions and some financing by the various water regulators, Department of Water Resources, State Water Resources Control Board, regional water boards, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and others. They can look at that and say, okay, here's a goal we have to achieve. How do we do it? What do we need to do? So what we're not doing is we're not picking winners and losers. We're not going to say we want water only for this purpose. We want water that's affordable only here. That argument will fail in Sacramento. We want to work more collaboratively with all stakeholders, and rather than looking at redefining beneficial use, keep all that as it is. Everybody who has the water will continue to have their beneficial use protected in law and the Constitution. We're not changing that. What we're saying, though, is when we're having this conversation about SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, let's focus on the supply side of it for a change. There's a lot of focus on the demand side. Don't put any new wells in. Reduce your well usage. All that, we understand that that's, to create a sustainable groundwater basin. But the other side of it is, let's look at creating more groundwater. What do we need to increase that supply? Because that's going to benefit every water user in California.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. We really need to rally behind this. And it's really a disappointment to a lot of farmers when they just see all this water just run off in such a trying time as this with the drought that we've experienced. So thank you so much. Read more about these things in our publications. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.